A lot is going on in the world, and we'll be talking about that here on Pod TV and see what folks have to say about a number of these stories. Hoping to bring in my guest as well, but we're having some technical difficulties. Oil drops 10%. Stock surge after Iran says Strait of Hormuz is completely open during the ceasefire. So that is what folks are saying as Iran declares Strait of Hormuz completely open to commercial traffic. So we'll see how this holds up and everything like that. As Donald Trump has announced a 10-day ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon. Lebanon ceasefire leaves Netanyahu in an uncomfortable spot, is what is being reported in the New York Times. Leaders urge for restraint as 10-day Israeli Lebanon ceasefire takes effect. So, definitely that's something that folks are talking about as well. And the Democrat Anna Maijay wins a special House election. So, that's something that folks are paying attention to as well. And of course, Starmer says it is staggering and unforgivable he was not told Mandelson failed vetting. So that's something going on in the UK. Starmer fires the senior UK civil servant over the Mandelson revelations and everything like that. And British Prime Minister Starmer under new pressure to resign over the U.S. ambassador appointment. Ukraine scrambles to supply air defenses as large scale Russia attack kills 16. At least 17 people in another report were killed in Russia's deadliest attack on Ukraine this year. And Myanmar reduces Aung San Suu Kyi's prison sentence. So the Myanmar cuts the ex-leader's sentence and frees the former president. So Myanmar scraps all death sentences as they pardoned over 4,000 prisoners, including the deposed president. And Macron and Starmer hold a Strait of Hormuz summit as Iran and U.S. declare the waterways open. So this is something going on as well. So it does look like the waterways are open. A political era has ended. Orban breaks silence after the Hungarian election defeat. So EU officials arrive in Hungary for high-stakes talks with the Magyar's government. So definitely that's something people are talking about as well. As Pope urges Cameroon to reject violence at mass that draws 120,000 people, and all along those lines. So that's just some of the news that's going on. I'm going to bring in Rick Rosner, see what he's got going on in his world. We're trying to see what's going on with our guest as well, and seeing if he can hear us and what some of his things are, because he was actually a political candidate and actually a political reporter as well. Kremlin admits humiliating mistake after glam blogger blasts the tyrant. So Kremlin acknowledges criticism after the blogger warns Putin squeezed Russians could erupt. So Russian influencer breaks their silence on the Putin. Vladimirovich, people are afraid of you. So Russian influencers turns from cosmetics to politics, but don't mention the war. And South Koreans breathe sigh of relief as escaped wolf is returned to zoo safely. And the Iran war apparently is a win for China. So China steps up Iran diplomacy while seeking a smooth summit with Trump. So that's going on as well. And Europe's jet fuel shortage. Could the jet fuel shortage cancel your international flight this year? Jet fuel crunch threatens summer flights in Europe, as the industry is warning about that as well. So a lot's going on in the world and in the U.S. as well. So always glad to have these conversations. By the way, the Dow surged 700 points after Iran signaled shipping may resume. So it looks like the Dow is up in that case. And the acting ICE director, Todd Lyons, will be stepping down in May. So he says the acting ICE director says he plans to resign in May, and we'll see how that impacts what goes on with ICE. ICE has detained Marie Therese Rose Maillet, an 85-year-old widow. So this French widow, 86, flies home after her ICE detention ordeal. The French government is seeking the release of the 86-year-old French widow detained by ICE. And the Trump's criticism of Pope Leo is still very much in the news, as Stephen Colbert delights in Trump's ongoing papal feud. So apparently there's a feud between Trump and the Pope and everything like that. So that's just some of the things going on in the world. So what's happening in your world, Rick? And we'll see if we can get Rob on as well. But
Well, the price of oil is now $82 a barrel, down from over 100. The price of gas hit a high of 416 a week ago. It's been floating downward. Now it's about 407. And we'll see how many tankers they can get through the strait before it gets shut down again if the talks fail. When you say that there's a ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon, you really mean a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah.
right.
Hezbollah runs a mafia type government of Lebanon. There is no functioning Lebanese government. It's all Hezbollah. And I think Rob can hear us now. but we should hear from him.
Absolutely. Can you hear me at all?
Yes.
Then we are good to go. I agree with everything Rick just said. Absolutely, mate. That's perfect. That's what's going on up there, and it's a mess. And
So,
honestly,
Rob,
it's good to see, from my perspective. I've spent little time in Israel, and I'm glad to see that they're finally taking action. They need to. It's a mess over there.
share a little bit about your own background, Rob. I know I met you through some of the social media backgrounds, and I know that you're a former political candidate and you've been through the turmoils of political campaigns. I told you that my mom actually ran a political campaign decades ago and everything. Actually, our current Secretary of State, she was actually beat my mom and everything like that. But I know, and I've got friends that have run for office here in Durham, North Carolina, and everything like that.
Okay.
But share a little bit about your own background as a political candidate.
Well, for me, it was one of those situations where it wasn't something I expected to do. I was fine in my life as it was, and I had gotten involved in a primary for Congress in Central Texas. I was in the media at the time, and I was going to have to quit my job to run for office. And I ended up getting involved in a primary. But it wasn't till several years later when I was approached by a local judge asking me if I would please consider running against the incumbent congressman who had been there for 18 years and was pretty powerful. He said we couldn't get anybody on our side to challenge him. And I said, well, if nobody will challenge him, I'll put my name on the ballot just to give people a choice. But somebody will jump in because they always did. That's just how it worked in this district. You'd get a bunch of Republicans challenging the Democrat incumbent because this was a Republican district. So therefore, everybody was saying, well, why is this Democrat keep winning in our district? Well, he kept passing himself off as a conservative Democrat. And so that's what kept happening. So the Republicans would chew each other up in the primaries, spend all their money, beat each other up, and then he'd be sitting there fat, and flush with cash and ready to run, and he would destroy everybody. So that went on for about 16 years. And like I said, I was approached by a local judge who said, Rob, would you please consider running? And I said, well, yes, if only nobody else does. Then but don't give my name out there. And my book goes through all this, but I see you. Okay, can you all hear me and see me still?
You've been it's patchy.
But we can
Okay. Well, now I see Mark.
Yeah.
So anyway, the bottom line was I ended up running. Nobody else jumped into the race by virtue of Republican counties chairman telling people, look, we've got a candidate. We can't give out his name, but he is going to run. And so I ended up getting a chance to actually challenge the congressman without a brutal primary. And nobody gave me a prayer. Nobody gave me a chance. Nobody would help me, including the Republican Party, because they just had continued to beat their head against the wall to try and get this guy out. They spent millions of dollars, and it just never happened. In fact, I talk about it in the book where I went down to file in Austin to challenge the man at the last minute of the last day. And if I don't run, nobody's going to run. And I get down there and I'm walking through the office to go file. And one of the managers says, Rob, I understand you're going to challenge Chet Edwards. And I said, yeah, I'm looking forward to working with you. And he goes, no, we've given up on that. But good luck. We sure hope you win. I was like, really? This is what we're up against. And we've just lost Mark, I see. But anyway, I ended up signing up. I ended up filing, and nobody would help us. Nobody would give money to us. We tried to give money, tried to get people to give money. In fact, I went up to Washington and I begged the NRCC, the National Republican Congressional Committee. I said, look, if you're not going to help us, please stop hurting us. Because what was happening is people would call in and say, hey, we want to give money to the Kernock for Congress campaign. And they were being told, don't waste your money. He can't win. We've got other races where your money will go much further. So that's what we were up against. And then when the results came in, it's just like a political Rocky. When the results came in, they were stunned. Everybody was stunned. And the story goes on from there. I don't know how much you're hearing because I see, Mark, you're dropping.
No, we hear
now,
quite a
so
bit of what you're
don't know
saying and
what you're
everything
getting
like
or what
that.
you're not getting.
Just really quickly, tell us about your latest book, An Eye for a Tooth, and also Dead Men Running, which I think is part of what your campaign was about. But just share a little bit about what those two books were and how you came about them, because I think An Eye for a Tooth is the latest book and everything like that.
Yes. Dead Man Running, I wrote Dead Man Running after the campaign, and we were responsible for getting the congressman out. And the story goes through how that all worked. And what's fascinating, I wrote Dead Man Running after the race basically as catharsis. I was so beat up, and the book goes through all this. I was so beat up after the race, which is what happens to candidates, especially as you get down to the wire. And when there's big money and big prestige involved, it just gets ugly, nasty, and dirty. However, as I say in the book, the dirtiest and nastiest campaigns, they're in the contested primaries, because that's where not everybody wants to sit there and say, I agree, I agree, I agree. So what they end up doing is going after personal attacks on their opponents. So that's when they get really ugly. But anyway, I wrote Dead Man Running, and the basic premise behind the book was that evil flourishes when good men do nothing. And I stepped up to the plate. Doesn't mean I'm a wonderful guy. It's just I was willing to step up to the plate. And had I not done it, the National Party wasn't even going to go after this seat until like 4 or 6 years later. But I jumped in. They wouldn't help me. They gave me no chance. And we came this close in spite of being outspent 300-1. So we went again the next cycle, and that's where it ended. And what's amazing is the former congressman, who the whole book is about getting a guy named Chet Edwards out of office. And he happened to come into my shop about a year ago, and he saw the book under the counter, because we sell to people that want me to autograph and stuff like that. But I prefer people go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble or whatever. So he came in, sees the book under the counter, and asked my manager, did Rob write a book? And she goes, yeah. And he goes, well, what's it about? His race against you. And he goes, oh, well, I guess I better buy one. So he bought the book. I come into the office the next day, come around the corner of the front. There's Chet Edwards standing there. He goes, Rob, I bought your book yesterday. I said, I understand now, but you got to understand it's coming from my perspective. So you might not agree with everything. He goes, no, I want you to know you kept me up till 2 a.m. last night. I couldn't put the book down. Rob, it is so good. And I said, well, does this mean you'll write a good review for me? He goes, absolutely. Anyway, before he leaves, we talked for an hour and a half. Before he leaves, he buys 2 copies to give as gifts. Then he's saying, Rob, I don't care if you're in a room full of MAGA people, if you want me to help promote this book, I will be there. It's that important. It's that good. So I joked with him and I said, well, Chet, we're about to re-release it. New cover, added photos, edited inside. I said, you ought to write me the new foreword. Ha ha ha. 3 weeks later, I get an email from him. Rob, if I was going to write a foreword to your book, this is what I would write. He goes, if you want to use it, great. If you don't want to use it, that's totally up to you. It won't hurt my feelings. I'm not a writer. I read through the thing. It was absolutely beautiful. I mean, I couldn't ask for a better foreword. So if you get the new version, which just came out about 6 months ago, the first thing you see in there is a foreword by Chet Edwards. And the whole book is about getting him out of office. And mind you now, this guy was powerful. He was one of Nancy Pelosi's favorites. He was almost Barack Obama's vice president. It came down to him and Joe Biden. So it's just amazing, the forward. And that's what's gained a lot of media attention. So I've been doing a lot of that. The other book you mentioned is a nonfiction book. It's a fiction book. Right. It's a murder mystery, or is it, set in Central Texas. It's drawn from actual events. It has gotten great reviews. It's done pretty darn well. I had a chance to pitch it to a producer in Hollywood about a year ago, and it comes from a completely different perspective. It has some politics in it. I consider it to be a Christian book because the lead character is an FBI agent who's a born-again Christian, and he's politically conservative. And he's trying to solve this mysterious crime that's getting bigger, badder, and worse. But he's also coming up against the woke culture of the FBI. And what's really cool is I had an retired FBI agent was my technical advisor on this thing. So everything's accurate. So anyway, the book goes through how he is trying to solve the crime. But by the end of the book, you're not sure who you're rooting for, the good guys or the bad guys. So I had a chance to pitch it to a producer. The producer bought into the story, but he said, Rob, we're going to have to take the politics out. And mind you, the politics aren't overwhelming. It's just that the lead character, these are his politics. So I said, I understand. His name was Jack. I said, Jack, I understand this. I said, the politics in this book are not exactly conducive to Hollywood values. I tried to be, gentle about it. And he said, oh, no, Rob, you'd be surprised at how many conservative Christians there are in Hollywood. He goes, now, I'm not one of them, but I'm really thinking this story is, he wanted to be a producer for it. So anyway, the agency bought into it. He and I ended up working on what they call a treatment, which is where they take the book, condense it down to what would be a movie length.
Right. Changed
quite a bit, but not totally. And I agreed with his changes as long as it would help sell. That was my point. As long as you don't change my main character into something completely opposite, which they didn't do. Then they brought in a screenplay writer. He went over the treatment, read the book, and then, met with me. So they finished up the screenplay, and the screenplay is currently being shopped right now in Hollywood, and they've got some nibbles. He just sent me an email about a week and a half ago that they've got an investor out there that is actually interested. They've also got a production agency that still wants to talk. They've asked for the complete screenplay. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. I'm just sitting here waiting to see if something good comes of it.
Well, you come from TV. You're a former news anchor. So
correct.
You've already been
I was a sports guy.
Okay, so I'm in LA, and I've pitched a lot of stuff. My wife and I go to a lot of presentations where we see a movie, then they bring in the production team to answer questions, and generally it takes like 7 years. That I talked to a producer.
Really?
I talked to a guy who sold a lot of stuff at the gym, and I go, on average, how many for each project? How many pitch meetings do you need to go to sell something? He goes, about 100.
Wow.
There's a lot of it's like frickin' politics in that there are a lot of middle managers who have to justify their jobs, and they create friction, and there's a limited amount of money. You've got these development guys. I know a development guy at Comedy Central who would take 1,000 pitches a year. He only had the budget to greenlight like 4 pilots a year. So he just had people come back and like, yeah, I like this, go back, expand this. So yeah, it's a long freaking process.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I've learned, and for me it was totally new, just meeting with these guys, and it was fascinating. We were in one of our meetings with the screenplay writer and myself, and we were talking about, they're getting to the attachment phase, which is where you try to get actors, directors, producers, you know this, Rick, where you try to get those attached. Then you can take it to an HBO, Netflix, whatever, and say, hey, we've got so-and-so on board with this, and so. And then that gives them more credibility. They're also looking for investors too. If they can get investors, that's a big deal. But I was sitting there talking to him, and I had just seen an article the day before on Chris Pratt, and he was stressing his Christian values, et cetera, et cetera. And I just threw it out there at the meeting. I said, I'd love to see someone like Chris Pratt be the lead character, whose name is Jake. I'm sorry. And he, all of a sudden, Jack, the producer, goes to the screenplay writer and he says, hey, Stanley, have you ever worked with Chris? And Stanley, no, I have not. He goes, well, I have a good friend that just finished up a project with Chris. And yeah, I think he would approach him for me, blah, 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 blah. And I was sitting there as these two are going back and forth on this. I'm sitting here out in the real world, and I'm going, it would be a sheer fantasy for me to have Chris Pratt involved in the movie. And I just sat back and I'm going, for me, this is sheer fantasy. For these two, they're actually discussing, well, how can we get him in this? And I suddenly realized at that point, in Hollywood, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And so everything is connections. Like he's already guaranteed, he said if we get any kind of funding behind it, he's already got Kevin Sorbo locked into this thing, is what he's told me. They want somebody bigger than Kevin Sorbo. But
you have to watch out with the Kevin Sorbo. He's the guy who played Hercules, and he's now hard far right. You see him on Twitter all the time, like, and then I'm a liberal, and the liberals and I will pile on him saying, "When was the last time you worked? You're an old man now," and da 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 da. And so you have to, there's Christian media. The Daily Wire will make movies. The Daily Wire is a pretty far right, and they've got a decent amount of money, and they'll make movies targeted at their crowd. But by doing that, they're shooting for like 20% of the market. The conservatives who've given up on Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things about this book is it's really a crossover. And I agreed with their decision to take the politics out of it. They left a little bit of the Christian element in it, and that, just because that was the character's, that's who he was, and it's what kind of sets him apart a little bit different from the world that he's working in. This is, and they're looking at Kevin Sorbo just because he's worked with him before and he knows he could get him. And it's a name that people recognize. They're looking at guys like, I don't know who they're looking at, but they've thrown out names, Zachary Lee. Is it Zachary Lee?
I don't know. I don't even know what it's like. But it's a long process. Anyway. But it generally leads to a better product.
Like, it's definitely a long process and everything like that. Just really quickly, I wanted to introduce.
Let me finish. So sometimes on Netflix, you'll see something that went with no rewrites. Went from a writer's, because somebody had money to privately finance something, a low budget thing, and you're like, well, no, this movie needed more work. Somebody needed to do more rewrites. What you're going through now. You'll get some bad notes from people, but most of the notes you'll get will be pretty good notes. And by the time this thing, it's like a rock tumbler. After months and months of meeting and pitching and hearing different people's opinions, and you can throw out the opinions that are nonsense, but you'll get some people will have notes that'll improve it. And by the time it gets to the point of being made, it should be, pretty good. And about the 4-quadrant model, right? That for people to put money into a thing, they want the 4 quadrants: men, women, young, old. You got to hit all these.
The different demographics and everything like that. But just really quickly, Rob, I want to introduce you to Nick. Nick is one of the founders of the network and everything like that. But one of the things we have is we have a show here on the network that is called Economics Monday. It features David Walker and everything like that. And he ran like as a third-party candidate and everything like that. But I know one of the things that I know Nick has been very much adamant about is how we don't have enough true candidates that are invested in being down-to-earth candidates. So like the old-fashioned kind of like Mr. Smith goes to Washington type of candidates and everything like that. So I was wondering, do you think that we'll ever go back to those days?
Mr. And Smith goes to Washington?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Smith doesn't go to Washington anymore.
I agree.
What goes to Washington are lunatic fringe people on both sides, and then they try to compromise and they don't get anything done. So you have what they call a chaotic Congress, So you'll notice this says JDLLM Europe. I'm in Barcelona, Spain, so I decided to say goodbye, America, adios, and I went and moved to Barcelona. So I don't live in the United States anymore, even though I own a company there. I just decided to bail because Europe is more sane than the United States. The United States is nuts.
Well, we miss you.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you have the lunatic. Hey, Kim, I've been following Kim. She's one of the founders of the network. Apparently, she's been doing a deal with the Kentucky Derby so that we can broadcast from the Kentucky Derby this year all over the world. And I don't know how that's going. All I saw was you're doing some contracts with them.
I think we have one more contract to sign, but our credentials have been processed. So it's really a big step for Pod TV. This is really cool.
Yeah.
Because they have to approve the network first, and they approved our network. That actually went.
Oh, they
fast.
did? Were approved? Hey,
They
you
approved
go
our
to-
network. Like, they went out and took a look at Amazon and
Yeah.
Roku and all the places we broadcast, and they looked at our shows. Yeah, we're approved.
Well, good. We got approved.
We got approved. Just really quickly,
Rob, you're in Waco, Texas. Is that correct? Rob, hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
It's hard for me
Yes.
to hear.
You're in Waco.
Hello.
Yeah, I looked your.
I am in
internet
Waco,
there.
yes.
Yeah, because I have clients in Waco. I have dermatologist clients in Waco, and Baylor University is there. Did you go to Baylor?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did go to Baylor. That's what drew me to Waco. In fact,
Right.
after I graduated, I left and I went back to Buffalo, New York, where I had lived with my uncle while I was working in a Chevy factory because I was an auto worker making parts for cars because I didn't have money to go to college. So
Right.
I got enough money to go to college, and I looked through a college handbook, and I saw Baylor University, and it was cheap.
Yeah.
It had the values that I was looking for, and it was in the South. I thought that'd be kind of fun to live in the South, and
Right.
I ended up getting my degree, and then I went back to Buffalo to look for work, and it just so happened the first station that offered me a job actually Tampa did, but it was a writer. The first station that offered me an on-air position was in Waco, so I headed on back, and I've been here ever since. I could have gone to Buffalo, New York. I was offered a sports
Don't
anchor
forget Buffalo. I mean,
up there, and I didn't take it.
Forget it. We have one guy, Ken Reagan, who teaches. He's a professor at State University of New York, Buffalo. He's a computer science professor. He does our chess show from Buffalo. Okay, and you get a good job. I can see all that, but then you got to suffer through Buffalo. And I've been there, and it's like, forget it. I mean, I would go.
I lived there for 4 years.
Okay, so you already know. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not hell.
Yeah,
because
but I was fine with it. It's no, it's
You
a
were
beautiful
fine with it?
state. It for me, it's messed up politically, but it's a beautiful state.
Right.
Yeah. And my in-laws are up there, and my uncle is up there. It was a good experience, and for me, it was what I needed to get money to go to college because I just didn't have the funds. And my book goes through all that. So
Right.
Hey, Rob,
And my wife
Rob,
is
just really quickly, along those same lines and everything like that, there was a number of sports people that tried to run, including some for the Republican Party, in sports. So how much do you think sports lifestyle lends itself to being a politician? I'm thinking about people like Herschel Walker. I'm thinking people like Jesse Ventura, who is an independent wrestler and everything like that. But there have been a number of people that have used sports as a way to launch into politics. And you're a sports reporter, so I know that even some of my friends have thought about going into politics that are now being sports people, whether they're basketball players or a number of other folks as well. So how much do you think sports lends itself to
I
the
think
political
it's
aspect?
right. I think it's like anything. You have to know your audience. And in this case, you've got to know who your constituency would be. And it depends on your political philosophy. Now, one of the things I talk about in my book is that you got to run for the right reasons. If you don't run for the right reasons, you end up corrupt or corrupted by either, in our case, Austin or Washington, D.C. So if you're not in it for truly, I think, altruistic reasons, it's gonna burn you in the end. So for me, for anybody, if you're going to run, you got to kind of know. Like it'd be insane for me as a conservative Republican to run in, say, Manhattan, New York. I mean, it just.
How about Los Angeles?
It's not going to be conducive to me getting in. Now there are places in. I'm sorry.
I said California.
I'm sorry?
You don't want to run in California. No. Can you hear
He
me?
said California. He wouldn't
Well,
be running in
yeah, again,
California.
it depends. If you're in Orange County, you might be able to pull it off,
All right.
but you just got to know where you're at, and you can't run in a district where you've got no chance at all. In our case, in our district, we were a 65% Republican district, but this Democrat kept winning because he would go up to Washington and vote with Pelosi and company 100% of the time, but then come back to Waco and Central Texas and act like he was Mr. Conservative. And I told him this when we were talking. And by the way, the others, you didn't hear this, but he wrote the foreword to the new book, to the new release. And yet the whole book is about getting him out of office. And one of the things he told me when we first started talking, he said, Rob, I try to teach political science kids all the time now that politics doesn't have to be a blood sport. He goes, you and I kept the race civil, and the book keeps it civil. I trash his politics, but I don't trash him personally. And so people read the book and they go, wow, this Chet Edwards seems like a pretty decent guy. And he is. Yeah. He is a decent guy. He's a good man. I just disagree with him completely on where America needs to be. And so did the majority of our district, which is why he's no longer the congressman.
Yeah, I'm the same way with Tom Tillis. He and I never see eye to eye on policies. I think his are a bit over conservative, but together, when we boil down to our morals and what we want for our families, we see eye to eye. We both want good things for our families. We just see some things very, very different politically. But, he's actually kind of turned the envelope a little bit recently. I think that's kind of funny. But I think that you can be civil with each other and not have the same political tactics, but truly have the same values of what you want for your family. I mean, I just believe that can happen. I wish we would get more away from political parties.
Well, for me,
to a person. I just want to vote for a person. I don't want parties anymore. I don't either,
but that's me.
Well, for me, I'm never going to be rude to anybody. That's just not how I was raised. That's not my personal values or my beliefs. But I will stand firm on certain values and principles that are important to me and the people that I would have been representing in this district. And I'm not ashamed of my values, and I know they're not popular in a lot of in some quarters. But like I said, in my case, I felt if nobody stands up and puts themselves out there, which tends to happen, then the other side wins.
I want to get back to
the other side.
Why are we two-sided?
Then you've given them the platform, you've given them the power, and it's just not something I want.
Right. Why are we two-sided? Why do you say the other side? Why can't we all just say, let's work towards something that can work for everyone? And, keep the religious values in your home and in your church, and, let people be more about taking care of their own selves and their own needs and everything. Why can't we just leave the parties out of it and end the religious push on everything? Because that's where a lot of the disgruntled comes from.
So I want to get back to, you talked about how much, in terms of characters, how Christian they can be in a screenplay. My wife and I watch a ton of TV, and we always guess what's going to happen next. And usually we're pretty good at it. People don't like that. People want surprises. And if you can put a Christian character in there and their Christianity leads them to do, say they're an FBI agent, say they're whatever, and leads them to do surprising things that in any given situation, you wouldn't, for a viewer, because people have seen everything now. during COVID, everybody watched thousands of hours of stuff, and everybody's tired of seeing the same old stuff. If a Christian's in there and they do that, makes them a wild card. That's a good thing.
Well, that's the reason that the publisher Jack and the screenplay writer and the agent, they bought into my book because it is different. It comes from a different perspective than what we've been seeing in out of Hollywood. It doesn't beat you over the head with it, but it's just different. In fact, what was kind of funny was when we were in the meetings with the screenplay writer and the producer, they couldn't come up with any comps. They the agency said, we got to see some comps. They couldn't come up with any comps. That's how different this book is. Yeah, I consider it to be a Christian book, but it's not by any means. I mean, it's got violence, it's got bad language, etc., and it's got different characters in it. But that, to me, is what it's a kind of a crossover, and I think that's what's a little bit different about it, and that's why they think they can do something with it, and I hope they can.
Rob, what's the name of the book?
It's called An Eye for a Tooth.
Eye for an Eye, Tooth?
It's
An Eye for a Tooth.
An Eye for a Tooth. Well, there's a reason. There's a reason for that title.
What's the reason?
Yeah, it's just unique. Like I said, what's the reason what?
For the title.
What's the reason that it's unique? Oh,
no, for the title.
Well, I'd give away the mystery if I tell you. That's what I'm saying.
It's a secret.
And see, that's why it's so hard. I've done radio and TV interviews with it, and it's been so. It's a mystery, and I mean, you don't really know what's going on till like deep into the book. In fact, what's funny was the publisher wanted some law enforcement types to do reviews, judges or whatever. And I know a lot in this area, so I got the newly retired sheriff, and he read it and absolutely loved it. And what was funny was I had sent him an electronic copy before we had published it, so he comes into my shop to get me to autograph a hard copy. And when he comes in, I said, "Hey, Sheriff, I got to ask you, when did you figure out what was going on in the story?" He said, "Rob, I'm ashamed to tell you, I've been in law enforcement my entire career, and I didn't figure out what was going on until deep into the book, and I was wrong." So
really?
It's just it doesn't go where you think it's going to go. And by the end of the book, you literally you're not sure who you're rooting for, but there's no moral ambiguity either. But you're just not sure. But it deals with topics that one of the things I was that there's a certain type of story. I will go this far with you guys. There's a certain type of story that you'll see in Left Wing or Fox News or whatever. There's a certain type of story. If you go down to the comment section, read the story, then go down to the comment section, and I don't care where you see the story, you will see thousands of comments, and they will be all saying the same thing from all across the political spectrum. And that's one of the underlying mystery themes of the book. That's all I can tell you. That's why the liberal producer and screenplay writer, they bought into it.
Is it available on Amazon, or how do you buy it? I buy a lot of books.
Amazon, Barnes and Noble.
Amazon.
I prefer people buy it at Barnes and Noble or Amazon because they can write reviews and people read those reviews.
Right.
We just sell some under the counter here at my office because people want me to autograph it,
Right.
But I prefer they buy it online, and because that, of course, helps numbers. But
I understand that. We even have a bookstore, don't we, Mark? We can put.
Yeah, we still have the bookstore, and I'll be adding the book to the bookstore and everything. Because anybody that's been a guest, I try to put them on the bookstore and everything like that. But yeah, we do have a bookstore that's available, and we attach it to. It's basically an Amazon.
And I'm addicted to books. I probably buy about 50.
Well, go to my website.
So
go to my website. I got two that are virtually done.
Really?
In fact, what's funny is when we were meeting about Dead Man Running, we finished up our meeting with the producer, and I said, Jack, I couldn't decide whether to give you this one, or I got another book. It's done. I'm looking for an agent, so I haven't actually published it yet because I really want an agent because the test reads on it have been through the roof. And he said, well, what is it? So I told him it's called Scaredy Dog. And he goes, well, what's Scaredy Dog? What is it? So I told him, well, it's just a fun old-fashioned ghost story, middle grade, young adult up. It's just a fun old-fashioned ghost story, but it's seen through the eyes of my hero dog. And so then he was asking me I gave him a brief synopsis of the whole thing. And when I was done, he's like, Rob, that's the one. That's the family feature film.
Yeah.
Well, we were on, we were here for an eye for a tooth. So that's where it landed.
Yeah,
the test reads on Scaredy Dog.
Yeah.
Through the roof.
We like to see the people that come on Pod TV become successful. We had the attorney on who was the lead counsel for a case called Voss versus Trump. Now, people don't know the case, but this is 9 months ago. We brought him on because I thought, oh, this guy's got an interesting case. What it became a Supreme Court case where the Trump tariffs were thrown out by the Supreme Court of the United States. His name's Jeffrey Schwab. And so it was good to see that he got on our show early on, like 9 months ago, when he had just filed at the district court. And I looked at it and I said, this has a lot of potential. Let's go to the Supreme Court. And it did. And he won, which didn't surprise me. But we like to have guests on Pod TV become successful in their endeavors later on. And if you wrote a book that's great, that's good. You need to get a lot of publicity about it. But what I like to do is I like to see these authors, they turn these books into movies. And then I'm going like, wow. Then they do very well financially because the book business is hard.
Hey, Rob, just really quickly.
And, it's funny when we were discussing it. They were talking about, well, Rob, we're going to have to take the politics out. And I said, look, people are going to go back and read the original book. They will. They'll get my whole version of things. So that's fine with me, as long as you don't change the principal character. I mean, he's, it's just he is who he is, and as long as you don't do that, and they changed it up. You know how it is in movies. They changed it up, and it's not what my book is, but it's still pretty good. If you didn't read my book, it's still good.
Yeah.
So,
Rob, what do you consider?
I looked up while we were
fine with me.
While we were talking, I looked up what movies are Christian allegories. So I got a couple comps for you. One is the Shawshank Redemption.
Really?
The redemption, right in the name. And the idea of these movies is like people like redemption if somebody is put through hell. And in the Shawshank Redemption, which is probably every guy's second favorite movie after The Godfather. It's a total guy movie.
I've never seen it.
You should take a look. It's about a guy who gets tested. It's about a lot of stuff, but it's about a guy who gets tested over a period of 30, 40 years. And everybody loves the movie.
Yeah, I know. I know what it is. I just never was interested.
You have to see it. It may be the best movie ever made by some commentators. I mean, and seriously good. I mean, it is what it is.
There's another movie that I rewatched by accident called Hail Caesar, which is a Coen Brothers movie. These guys, the Coen Brothers, make a lot of like wacky, violent, weird movies.
Did they make Fargo?
They made Fargo, but there's a spiritual underpinning to a lot of the chaos. And this Hail Caesar is about a guy who's a fixer at a movie studio in the 50s. He does the cover-ups when all the stars at the studio get they get in trouble. They misbehave in a bunch of ways, and he's the one who has to make everything right. And you think he'd be the most corrupt character in the world, and it turns out that the whole freaking movie is a Christian allegory about a guy who tries to find the good while living in a world of bad.
Yeah.
Well, I don't consider I'm not trying to do broader Christian values. That's why they couldn't, I'm telling you, they could not come up with any comps. It's just different. That's all I can say. But it has a Christian character,
Yeah.
strong Christian character.
But
That's
that's
pretty much the gist of it. Well, I take that back. No, there is another Christian element that comes. Yeah, there is a Christian element that comes into play, but it wasn't meant to be a Bible story or a preachy movie type. It's part of the story of the individuals in our society today, and there's individuals from all across the spectrum. So,
Hey, Rob, I want to come back to politics really quickly and everything like that, but also
Anyway.
in the talking about the notion of the common man. And
I
everything
have
like
no.
that. How much do you think finances can ever come out of the politics? Because that's one of the things that a lot of people, even here where I'm at in Durham, have talked about is the financial aspects of politics and everything like that. So you ran in Waco, and I know that Waco is definitely there in Texas, which is a high rent district in some places and everything like that. But how much can we take finances out of politics?
Well, if you read my book and look at my race, we had no finances in the race. I mean, we could not raise money because nobody thought I had a chance. Nobody felt I could win, so nobody would give to our campaign. I like I said earlier, I went to the NRCC. I said, please, if you're not going to help us, stop hurting us. Stop telling people to give to other races, not ours. I mean, and that's what was being done. We were outspent 300 to 1. I mean, it was just impossible to raise money. And the book covers all that. But you can win. You can win in a general election with less money. You can do it because now you've got ideology and you've got politics coming into play. Whereas in a contested primary, you have to have money and you have to have your own money because it's almost impossible unless you're really well connected, but it's almost impossible to raise money in a contested primary. So for me, I mean, yeah, money's ridiculous, but it does control everything, unfortunately. I don't know how you get money out of it. I just don't I just don't know how you do it. But you can win even though you're outspent. Just because you raise more money doesn't mean you're automatically going to win the race, especially when it comes to a general election. But yeah, the money thing is just, and I talk about that in the book, where every reporting period, you're coming up against a reporting period. It's like a death sentence. If you can't show good money raised, then that makes even more people he's not a serious candidate. He can't win. And that's what we were up against. I mean, it was just everything was working against us, both inside and outside politics. And again, I mean, it just, but I also do talk about the good things. There are good things involved in politics. It's just.
What do you see as some of the good things in politics?
You meet incredible people. You get a chance. Yeah, you get a chance to become a voice for the people that don't really have a voice for your side of the political equation. You can, if you feel like your government is out of control and is not going where you want it to go or where you believe it should be, then you have a chance to change that. The voters have to put you in, of course. To me, anybody can run. I think that's a good thing. That's an American value. I think another incredible American value is just the fact that America was based and begun on the foundation of personal freedom and liberty. And that's something that you don't see anywhere else in the world. And it began right here. And that's what we've had for so long, which is why I'm such an opponent of socialism, communism. I spent time in the Soviet Union back when it was the Soviet Union. You don't want socialism. It hasn't worked anywhere that it's been tried. The first thing that happens under socialism, communism is people starve. They don't have food. The only people that live well are those that are politically connected. I mean, it's just amazing. That's how it works. And so I'm going to do everything I can to see that socialism, communism is defeated everywhere it's raised in America. It just doesn't work. It's a horrible system.
Where do you see socialism popping up? Because, like, I look at the Heritage Foundation, which has a list of the most capitalistic countries in the world, and the U.S. remains the most capitalistic large country in the world. We're not in the top 20, but all the top 20 countries are these little dinky countries like, I don't know, Finland, Estonia, but for a big country, the U.S. is still. Where do you see creeping socialism? Because as a liberal, I see a lot of things.
Where do I see creeping?
Yeah, go ahead.
Where do I see creeping socialism? I see
Where do you
creeping
see,
socialism
like,
in America.
Like,
well, you've got, I mean, the Democratic Party is a large faction of it is they're coming out from behind the curtain. They are, yep, we're socialists and we want socialism. We're proud of it. It's being taught in colleges, education, media, entertainment. It's because, oh, it's a good thing. Oh, it's people are taken care of and nobody's, everybody's wealth. No, that's not how it works in reality. Yeah, in theory, it's a great program in theory, but it never works anywhere it's tried. And they, people will throw up, well, what about Sweden or what about Norway or what? Those are small, homogeneous populations and now they're even starting to push back on it because they're getting immigrants from all over Africa, et cetera, that are swarming in and taking advantage of their.
That's an area we could actually debate because in Europe there is a lot of socialism. In other words, they don't have this extreme problems that you have in the United States where it's a winner-take-all economy, which I think is really sick because you've got people like Elon Musk on the hyper end of the stream, and then you have a lot of people that are multimillionaires and billionaires who frankly are in life for themselves and give a rat's rear about anyone else. And in Europe, it actually does work. And the thing is, a lot of people are a lot happier. Now, they don't have the GDP as they do in the United States per person, but the happiness index is much higher than it is in the United States. And it's not just Finland or Sweden. It's where I live in Spain. It's places in Germany where education is free as opposed to people going huge amounts of student debt. So I think that it's debatable. Now, do I agree with everything should be socialist? No, because people have their hands out all the time and they're not earning it what they need. But in the United States, you don't have socialism, but you do have another problem. It's what I call extreme capitalism. Okay, and that's not good either, because it is the destruction of many countries that have taken place over years. Because what happens, it's winner take all. Look at what the 1% have, or the top 10% in your country. They have 60% of all the assets. The bottom half in the United States right now has 1%. Okay, you have a very skewed and screwed country. And part of that reason I moved to Europe, I'm going, why would anyone live in the United States? It's disgusting.
I don't think it's socialism to want Elon Musk to pay some frickin' taxes.
Yeah, and do you know
he's got hundreds of billions in subsidies from the federal government.
Yeah, no kidding. And the thing is, it's worse than that. Have you looked at Oz transactions, Rob? What do you think about Oz transactions? Do you know what an Oz transaction is?
I don't know what an Oz transaction is.
Okay, well,
I do not. I'm going to be honest with you.
It's called an
I do know that
opportunity
10%
zone.
of the wealthy are paying.
Okay, let me just tell you about the Oz transaction. Opportunity zones. It was put in by Sean Parker. And the whole idea is that if you're multimillionaires do well in the stock market, which they will, because we have a whole program called VC Masters, and SpaceX is going public, and your friend Elon Musk has beaten his chest. Okay, can you imagine? He can sell his stock and pay zero taxes. In other words, he can make billions and not pay any taxes. Where everybody else in the United States, including yourself, you work, and if you work, you get the worst possible tax. It's W-2 income. Where if you're wealthy people, which I represent most of the time, is they don't have to pay taxes at all because they can go through an Oz transaction. Do Americans even know about opportunity zone transactions? No. Do tax attorneys? Yes, every one of them. Do wealthy people? Yes, every one of them. So this is part of the reason why you have such a skewed system in the United States where 1% owns 40% and the bottom 50% own 1%.
Well, you should explain what an opportunity zone is. It's a screwed up neighborhood.
It's pretty simple. Okay, in theory, let's say like I sell Pod TV and I make $16 million. Okay, normally I'd have to pay a tax on that, a capital gains tax of about 20%. But I don't want to pay any taxes. I'm a typical greedy American. Why do I want to pay 5 or 6 million taxes? So I can take my gains, put it into real estate in an opportunity zone, hold the real estate for 10 years.
Which is an opportunity zone is a sucky neighborhood.
Nothing. Okay. And the thing is, do you have the opportunity to do that with your earned income? Absolutely not. Do wealthy people? Absolutely. So the wealthy get wealthier, and I represent wealthy people. I mean, my clients have been the founding family of Dunkin' Donuts, the president of Kimberly-Clark, the president of Bausch & Lomb, the founder of Dunkin' Donuts. I've represented them for 42 years. It's a different game. They do not play on the same surface of the average American. And, it is what it is in American land. And the problem is that the average American is so ignorant about the tax system that they don't realize how bad they're being screwed.
I got one more thing. I have one more thing to bring up. I'm not a fan of socialism. I've done well under capitalism, but we've got AI coming along and just chewing up jobs by the millions. And I don't know what happens 20 years from now if AI makes a ton of jobs go away and every American is underemployed or unemployed. I don't know what you do about it.
Hey, Rob, I want to hear your thoughts on that. But just really quickly, Rob, I know that on this show, we have a gentleman, not on this show, but on the Economics Monday, and Nick can tell you about this, but he says that we have a crisis of laggership, not leadership. So he thinks that a lot of people are lagging in terms of that and not really leaders on both sides of the political aisle and everything like that. So I was wondering your thoughts around this, because this is something that David Walker talks about, is that we have a crisis in leadership quality. So I was just wondering your thoughts as one that has ran a campaign and has also been involved in political reporting and sports reporting.
Well, it's funny. I have a little different value or a little different thought on political positions. I hear I hear people running for Congress will talk about, well, I want to be a leader, and good. I want to be a good leader. We need good leader, et cetera, et cetera. My thinking is, you're running for representative. You're not supposed to be a leader. You're supposed to represent the people. And you should be listening to what they say. And of course, you can't go out and listen to every single person. But it's the problem. The problem is when you've got congressmen who all think they're leaders. They're not necessarily leaders. They're supposed to be representing their people. The president, he's a leader. The governor, he's a leader, or she, whatever. You have leadership positions, but representative, it says it in the title. That's what you're supposed to be doing. Not saying, I'm your leader, do what I want you to do, which is where a lot of the politicians in Washington have lost sight. They are doing what they want to be done because they think, well, I know better than you. Now, I happen to think that one party is much more egregious at that than the other, but it does happen in both sides. I mean, we're facing we've got a big battle going here in Texas over state Senate, because we've got one candidate that's been up there forever who says, I know what's best for you. I'm part of the establishment. We are smarter than you. We're going to help you, et cetera, et cetera. And then you got the other guy that says, no, you need to start reflecting the values of the people that sent you there. So that's what we're up against. We'll see which side wins. Obviously, I'm going to be for the other guy, but we'll see.
Well, hold on. I have questions.
So for me, it's you got two people that want to be leaders that aren't necessarily leaders.
Well, I have a question about that, because on the one hand, you got Cornyn. On the other hand, you have Paxton. And Paxton, I hear a lot about like the mischief that Paxton's gotten up to. And so what do you do with a guy like that who he stands for certain values, but in his personal life, he hasn't exercised those values?
Question.
I agree with you. That's a good question. And that is something a voter has to decide. Is this personal foible going to outweigh the fact that I feel that way with Trump. I never liked the guy. I didn't vote for him in the first primary that he ran in. I voted for Ted Cruz. But he's proven to be someone that's willing to fight for my values. Like, I never realized how bad the Bushes were, and I was a Bush appointee. You'll read that in my book. And I interviewed the George W., H.W. Nice people. These are good men, but they were never willing to fight for the conservative values and the conservative philosophy that people like myself want to see done. They were always just kind of get along. We're part of the process in Washington, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that's not what folks like me want.
Hey, Rob, just really quickly before we end and everything like that, Rob, just really quick before we end, what do you consider conservative values? Because I hear people using those terms. I hear people using terms like liberal values and things like that. But what do you consider to be conservative values? Because I might even find out that I've got some conservative values. But I'm just saying, what do you consider to be conservative values?
That's a great question. Let me tell you something. I consider myself to be in the libertarian wing of the Republican Party. That's where I kind of leave me alone. Let me pursue happiness. Let me try to do the best I can without telling me what to do or confiscating my wealth or this or that. Let me have my constitutional values. So I'm in that side of that. To me, a conservative is someone that really adheres to the Constitution and thinks America is a good country. And it's the greatest country on earth. And it was founded as the greatest country on earth. Yeah, is it perfect? No. But it's the best system that's been out there forever. So for me, a conservative is someone, and it's funny too. I talk to people that say, oh, I'm a liberal Democrat, or yeah, I'm a liberal, or I'm this or whatever. And then if you start digging down and you start going, subject by subject, bring up each individual thing, and it's amazing how well I believe that. Well, yeah, I believe that. I had one woman. We started talking. She was a hardcore Democrat, a middle-aged black woman, and we started talking because she was telling me how her son just won, or godson or something, won mayor of Tulsa, first time ever a Democrat. And she was telling me that she's Democrat and this and that. So I started asking her I said, do you believe a man can have a baby? And she goes, well, that's stupid. That's ridiculous. That nobody believes that's impossible. I said, well, the Democratic Party, they're now pushing that. That's one of their philosophy, their whatever values. And she goes, oh, I've never heard that. I've never heard that. Well, you need to start looking at what's happening out there. Do you believe, whether abortion's a big issue with you or not, do you believe that a woman can have an abortion right up to the moment of birth? And then in Virginia, where you can even set the baby aside if it's still alive and let it die if that's what the mother decides. I told her that. She's like, oh, no one believes that. No, I said, yes, those are laws in blue states. And what I just described is what they were just discussing in Virginia. Oh, I've never heard that. The Democratic Party doesn't believe that. Open borders. Oh, no, we can't have people just streaming across our borders. I said, well, that's what the Democratic Party has been pushing for the last 4 years. This is under Biden. And she's like, oh, they do not believe that. I've never heard that. That's ridiculous. And she finally stormed out. But it's like, you can't, when you find out individual issues, you'll find that a lot of us have agreement. Whether, you call yourself liberal, you call yourself, it's just how much level of an education. You might not realize you're supporting a party that totally disagrees with your values. And that's what I found when it comes to, who's what. You go to individual issues, and it's amazing how much common ground you have with people that call themselves liberal, especially in the Black community.
I want to focus on issues that matter to everybody. I mean, there's a lot of I don't want to hear a bunch of chatter about trans issues because, like, trans athletes, for instance, there's one trans athlete in Idaho, and I don't give that much of a crap if it's going to distract people from the real issues that affect their wallets. I don't want to hear about the frickin' trans athlete in Idaho. I want to hear about issues that are more relevant to everybody. Yeah, and you figure out that
I agree.
trans
Whoever
athlete.
thought a trans was an issue?
So, and you figure
Well,
out
whoever
on
thought
a
it was an issue
case-by-case
until
basis.
all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Well, but the
And-
Democrats started pushing it on everybody. Nobody thought about transes until the Democrats started making it a big issue. And that's when all of a sudden it's at the
we
forefront.
disagree about that, but like I don't think it's. I think we should be spending a lot more time not talking about that stuff and talking about the economic issues, for instance, and what the hell we're going to do about AI getting rid of tens of millions of good jobs and replacing them with crap jobs like Uber driver or OnlyFans model. Like, how do we deal with the frickin' future? So anyway, we're out of time. Pretty
Yeah.
much.
Any thoughts about that, Rob? How we deal with the future? And and then we're going to wrap up.
I've got to run to a deposition that my manager's been trying to get my attention here. So, I've got to run. But I sure enjoyed talking, and I mean, it was a great experience. I enjoyed meeting you all. Happy to do it again anytime.
Okay,
All right.
good.
Glad to do that and everything. Tell us how they can reach you and how they can get in touch with you. And if you want to answer that question about the future, you can do that too. But definitely how they can reach you, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay. If you want to see what I'm doing book-wise, you can go to robcurnock.com. ROBCURNOCK.com. That's where all my book stuff is at. I have a couple of companies that I also run, including the one I'm at right now. My future, were you asking about my future? Is that what you were asking about?
Your outlook on the future. You're like what?
And
Rob
my email, by the way, is RJ rjkernock@yahoo.com. That's my email. But the outlook for the future, now you might disagree with me if you don't like the current leadership, but I'm very optimistic with the leadership we have now. And so someone on the other side of the aisle is going, "Oh no, how could this? You got to be kidding me." Sorry, I see my values being pushed. I want America to be great again. I want America to be great always. And I think we always have been. And so that's where my optimism, I have more optimism than I've had. I had no optimism during the Biden years. In fact, it was dismal because it's just the parties have gotten so far apart now. Like I said, I even told Chet this when we were talking. I said, Chet, when I have a Democrat look me in the eye and say, how can that a man can have a baby? I said, Chet, I don't know where to go with that. And he just dropped his head. He goes, I know, but
Where to go with it
trying
is
to
to
tamp down
ignore
that wing. I didn't want to.
Where to go with that is to ignore the.
But they're in power.
Yeah, but
They are in the leadership of the Democratic Party.
all right.
That's just where
I
it's
gotta
at.
go.
They are in control. Yeah. Hey, nice meeting both of you. And
You
thank
too.
you, Mark, for having me on the show. Rick, was nice meeting you.
You
And
too.
hope maybe I'll be in Hollywood someday with you, huh?
Yeah, get in touch. Anyway, break a leg at your deposition.
Take it easy.
Thank you,
Appreciate both
sir.
of you.
We just videotape them. That's one of the things my company does. We videotape the depth. So there's a bunch of lawyers hoping that we can show up. This came on us unexpected. Literally like 20 minutes ago, they called it in. So I'm going to go handle it I don't have enough people here right now. But
Well, I appreciate you. Take it easy.
hey, thank you guys. Mark, enjoyed it. And anytime you need to get a hold of me for anything, you got my information.
All right. Sounds good. Look forward to it.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. No problem.
Bye.
Well, that wraps up this edition, and we're going to get on out of here.